Where's
How are
Adam?
you? I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm running around trying to plug a charger into a laptop and make sure my internet's working. Hello. Good evening and welcome to the Caring View, the only online social care chat show that airs weekly. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that subscribe button, tap that bell so you're updated every single time we put a new video up. Be sure to subscribe this week because we are going live again on Thursday with a special episode. Christmas 2021, the inn is still closed, focusing primarily on visiting in care homes over the winter period. And before we get started, all the views we express tonight are of our own and not our respective companies. Good evening, Mark and Dawn. How are we?
Yes, I'm
good, thank you.
So, what's new? Are we going to go straight to the news and decide what's new when care homes and care services across the country will not be having Christmas parties, most probably, for fear of losing all their staff to isolation periods, and the government are probably planning their next 15 within Westminster. I didn't say that. Where do we go from here? New restrictions are coming into play. They're doubling down on everything. Is the respect there? Are we going to do it? What do we all think? Mark, you've been just reading the news to us today. I've not had a chance to catch up myself about what they're voting for in the Commons. So what's occurring?
Yeah, so today they have voted for COVID passes and they have voted to extend the mask mandate in England. And they're still voting on two other things that escape me. But I don't know about you two. I find the whole guidance so confusing now. I don't actually know what we're meant to be doing or not meant to be doing. Like it changes so quickly.
No, yeah, I completely get what you mean. Before I knew it, Boris was on the telly again on Sunday and was making announcements about boosters and vaccines, and then some of the staff at the care home I'm working at the moment went online yesterday to order lateral flow device tests and couldn't get any.
It's like we've gone back in a time machine and gone back to winter 2020, isn't it? It's like, this is what we're going to do, but by the way, you can't order anything and you can't book anything. And that, I will be honest. I think the recent press releases have been an absolute shambles. I think not having his PR woman there to help him with answering the questions and briefing him with what's going to go on has been evident, because been unable to answer these questions flowing through about the parties they've been having in Westminster. And then we got a pre-released or pre-recorded statement from him, so I presume that was so he didn't have to answer any more questions. And I'm at a total loss of what we're supposed to be doing nowadays. I heard someone close to me, an acquaintance who had someone test positive in their household and they were going into work anyway, and I was under the impression that we couldn't do that now, but they said we could do that with a risk assessment, and I didn't know what care workers could do now and couldn't do now. And if I'm honest, I do still wear my mask when I go to the shops, if I've got one in my pocket. But there is a vast number of people who aren't. So I'm just worried that moving forwards, we're not going to be committing to this. And I think it is in part the fault of the government not leading the way, It's do as we say, not as we do in some regards. Dawn, the new care home visiting guidance has come out today. I know we're going to be discussing it on Thursday, but what's new there?
So it's three nominated visitors. That is exempt from the essential caregiver. That doesn't include preschool children. Residents should be able to have visits in bedrooms. But it's basically saying that the care homes have got to risk assess everything and should make their own determination. So once again, it's massively open to interpretation. Because the way I read it, school children could visit nanny, granddad, great aunt, great uncle. But other care home managers are reading it that only preschool children can visit. So it's really difficult again, because I know it's a guideline and it's guidelines that they're expecting people to follow, but it depends on that interpretation. Last September, I interpreted last September's guidance completely different and was allowing families in from the October when we did our own pilot. So, and I say allowing in meagre terms because I shouldn't be allowing anybody, but we went against the guidance that was out at the time and encouraged people to come in. But reading it this evening, it says preschool children is not included. Does that mean that the 13, 14-year-old can come and visit nanny? Does that mean they have to have a PCR or a lateral flow? And yeah, I find it so frustrating for care home managers to have an understanding of what they need to be doing. So when I've had people ask me this evening in respect of it, I've just said it's open to your own interpretation. Everything is open to a risk assessment. Everything is open to your own policy. Test everybody, PCR everybody if necessary, but keep the doors open. So I know it was only released a few hours ago, so I'm sure there'll be lots of questions coming up. But yeah, it's been waited for because obviously nobody knew anything about this. No guidance had been released about much of this, yet the media knew all about it on Sunday, which is quite frustrating.
It's always the way, isn't it? The media know everything before it actually comes out. But I think one thing that's sad for me, and I don't want to dwell on it too much because we're obviously going to talk about it Thursday, is I know that I've seen some care homes that have said they're not going to do visiting anymore. And then the next day, they're uploading pictures of Santa Claus in the care home. And I kind of think, how can you have entertainers into the care home if you're not going to have family members? Surely the family are more important than the entertainer. And family are probably less risk than that entertainer that's doing the rounds of care homes, nurseries, wherever else they're going out and about. But yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. But yeah.
There was one on Sky News today where care home residents were delighted to have a visit from penguins coming up to Christmas, which, you know, I bet is wonderful. I love penguins. I'd love to get up close and personal with a pingu. I think they're absolutely fab. But I'd much rather see my mum or my other half coming up to Christmas than a flightless feathered bird, in my opinion. And there is something about getting a phone call from a reporter going, "Oh, this is coming out tomorrow. What are your opinions?" And I'm like, well, first off, it would be nice if the social care sector got a heads up before the media and reporters did. I know in our people plan that we've just launched at the IHSCM, we have included the fact that ECGs, relatives, circles of support need to be looked into further when supporting care homes moving forwards. There's too many conversations about getting volunteers back in care homes into setting up, emergency volunteer schemes when I know when I went through our outbreak, all the relatives were like, right, tell us what we can do, give us a list, we'll come in and we'll help and we'll do this and we'll do that. And they're the third sector, they're the force we need to be using in our care homes because out of everyone, they care most about the people that we're supporting. So I think the Thursday's conversation is going to be a very interesting one. It's going to be quite a passionate one, probably a bit emotional for some people watching, but one that needs to happen. And obviously Scotland have announced that they're limiting 3 households over the next few weeks. I don't know if there's an end date on it or not. Is that a sign of things to come in England? I've got my goose frozen in my freezer at the moment with all my family coming around for the big day. So I'm hoping not, but what do we think?
So Scotland has announced that not to change your plans at Christmas. So I think that they're kind of, I don't know if Nicola Sturgeon's kind of regarding it as like a circuit breaker for the next week and a half or so. So she did say to people, don't change your plans. But personally, I think we're just going to move into lockdown 4. From what I understand, most NHS trusts at the moment are on black alert. And I saw a really emotive post from a nurse working in the NHS saying it's not a case that we don't have beds, we just don't have enough staff. So let's stop using that term that there's not enough beds in social care because actually we don't have enough staff in the NHS services. So and then another post today in respect of what is frontline anymore. Somebody put a brilliant post on Twitter saying, okay, so what is frontline staff? Is it those that are just standing in A&E, the nurses, the doctors in A&E, or is it everybody that's incorporated within frontline? So I think the NHS is becoming overwhelmed from what I understand, and I think we're moving into a new lockdown.
And not to put my tinfoil hat on here, not to put my tinfoil hat on, but we do need to have the conversation that the fact that we're losing staff left, right, and centre across social care and across healthcare. So this overwhelming of our services also needs to be attributed to the fact that we're not looking after our workforces and they are just not there to provide that support. So all the doom and gloom aside, Championing Social Care are having their Sparkle for Social Care movement at the moment. So let's finish on a positive before we get our absolutely fabulous guest in tonight. So on Twitter, on Facebook, hashtag Sparkle for Social Care. Tag all the people you can think of that make social care such a wonderful place. It's that simple. And sometimes just tagging someone is a means of gratitude and thanks can go a huge, huge distance. So hashtag Sparkle for Social Care. Get on Twitter, get on LinkedIn, get on Facebook. If you do TikTok, I tried. It's embarrassing. Don't look me up. Get on TikTok. Do it everywhere. You know, let's spread the love for social care. Dawn, do you want to do tonight's introductions?
I do. So this evening we have the amazing Professor David Sheard, who is now a professor at York St John's University, to discuss with us emotional intelligence in care.
Hi there. Hi. So yeah, great to join you all. Sat here in York, and I'm 2.5 months into my new role there, and I understand that it's the first professorial post with the title of Emotional Intelligence in Care, and obviously that was discussed for some time with the Vice Chancellor as to what that focus would be. And so the focus is obviously very much within the university and the School of Health, but it's also going to be an external focus as well. So I'm really pleased to be here and talk about the subject. Yeah.
So just give us a bit of background, David, for those who are watching who might not be aware. I mean, most people who have done their level 5s, level 7s in social care will probably have come across EI at some point. But what is emotional intelligence? What does it mean to be emotionally intelligent?
Yeah, I mean, there's been fads around the subject. It was fashionable in the 60s, and then in the 90s, it became a sort of, real major text by Daniel Goleman in the 1990s. And then it's sort of not really been sort of at the fore again. But my view of emotional intelligence is that you meet people, individuals, and you know, don't you? You just know that they're very emotionally savvy. And what do I mean by emotionally savvy? I suppose I mean that they are highly skilled, and that might not come from skill. It might come from themselves as a personality, but it might come also from developed skill, where they are really expert at emotionally navigating, be in a meeting, be it in a personal relationship, be it sat with a team. They know that the whole of our world is about feelings. That essentially we are feeling beings more than anything else. And they know, therefore, that in their interactions, that it will, whatever it is, whether it's about a building, whether it's about a policy, whatever, however practical and mundane the subject, they know that the core of the success of that interaction, relationship, meeting, is that they're going to need to emotionally navigate, and that they are often very good at intense listening. They know how to interpret the emotions then going on within the room and within the relationship. They're able often to very sensitively speak about the emotions that are going on when many people otherwise wouldn't. They're often people who I've used my strapline. They're able to speak the truth. They feel genuine. They're being authentic, and they will name what's going on in that relationship, in that interaction. But more than that, they'll also have the skill in capturing the person, the team, the organization, to be with them. And they achieve that by helping the organization, team, individual to believe that you want to be with them and they want to be with you. And we take all that for granted, but it's actually something highly developed. And that's why we go around sometimes saying, oh, people have got it or they haven't, instead of thinking, well, what about actually saying it's actually a skill? It is something that could be learned and developed in people.
Go on, Adam. No, you're fine.
I was going to ask whether it's something that could be learned or not, because for my newsletter last week in the IHSM, was it the week before, I was talking about the 5 ways to well-being. And one of the 5 ways to well-being is literally to take a step back and just listen, and I was doing it from the point of view of a manager or a leader in social care, and just sitting back and listening to what's going on within our team, not sitting down and engaging in conversations, but observing how they're interacting and how they're feeling, and they're just the look on their faces and how they hold themselves, and taking that in and then using that to adjust how you approach them, adjust what you say to them, and the way you work, which for me, and I presume for Dawn and Mark, is second nature to us. It's what we're used to doing. But there are many managers who have probably this last 18 months, skyrocketed up the ranks because registered managers have left the sector, found themselves in positions of management that they've not been properly trained for, and probably have no idea about emotional intelligence and how to use it properly. So it is a skill that can be learned.
I think so. I think a lot of it is sometimes about permission. And I think people know whether they're in a culture of care that is giving them permission to be real, to be authentic, to be genuine, to speak truth or not. And I think there are many people in health and social care cultures who know in their gut that they're not in that place, that it is not open, that it is not wanting people to come to work to be real. And I think the first thing is that a culture of care has to examine itself. How open is it? How really authentic is it? How much does it want the whole person at work? And that's the fascination for me, that for the last 30 years, since Tom Kitwood and many others wrote about person-centered care, we've expected this of, and I don't even like the word staff, we've expected it of people at work to give and be that for other people without really examining that is there a dichotomy in asking that of others if they're not receiving it themselves. And to receive it yourself, you have to be able to come to work as a whole person. And so, for instance, in my inaugural lecture, I put a sheet on everybody's chair, which had 6 words under different headings. It was about personality, traits, fears, hopes, successes, failures, everything about me, which I think some people were quite staggered about. Oh, so this is this guy giving an inaugural lecture as a professor, and he's actually, one of the words he's used was, he's flawed. Another word he's used is made big mistakes in his life. But it's that sense of, if we're really going to come to work as a whole person, only then are we in a chance with person-centered care. So I think it can be learned, because we expect staff to learn the rudiments of person-centered care. We send them on training course after training course about person-centered care, and we hope they'll come back and apply and practice that. But I wonder whether we do enough to actually help them develop inside themselves who they really are inside.
So one of the things I was going to ask was, it was about a month ago, I actually heard somebody say to a member of staff, we all have problems, just please don't bring them to work.
Yeah.
Because you can't bring your problems to work. You need to leave them at the front door, and then you can deal with them later. What would you have said to that person when I had heard that?
I would say to them, that immediately tells me roughly when you were trained, and I think you've acquired those views and feelings. I don't believe they're actually real in you. I think you've decided from either things you've read, things you've been in terms of your professional training, that you learnt about exactly that, being detached, that detached equals professional. And that is why you've just said you've got to leave all your stuff at the door. But I'd say, well, that belongs to the 1970s and the 1980s. And I can say that because that's when I was trained. And I was trained about what what being a professional was. And it was exactly that. People were told that you somehow put on a professional mask, that somehow you became neutral, that you actually were not a whole person at work. So what I'd be saying to that person is, actually, you've just unwittingly and unconsciously, and probably wouldn't wish to have, you've completely diminished someone. And you've actually said, I want less than the whole of you. And if you want less than the whole of them, you're going to get less than the whole of them at work. And they're going to drop into care in tram lines and follow the tram lines. They're going to be limited in their innovation, limited in their creativity. But I'd also qualify it by saying to that manager, and I'm not saying we arrive at work, I don't go up to, a person, I'm wanting to talk to and say, oh, by the way, do you know I have cardiac disease and I've got a quadruple heart bypass and it's 17.5 years old and I've just been on echocardiogram and they said if I didn't make 10 minutes, I'd have less than a year. And, you just don't do any of that. But the wholeness of you is the sense of the aura and the being you give across. That the person will pick up from you the feelings that you're coming from a place of heart, you're coming from a place of being genuine, you're coming from a place of equalness. There's no difference between us. You just happen to live here, you just happen to be staying here in hospital, I just happen to have come because I work here to sit with you. But we're actually two people and we're going to engage on a real level. And I think people know that. I think people in hospitals and care homes and day clubs and everywhere, they know whether we're genuine or whether we've left everything at the door.
I think that was a really good question, Dawn, because I know, David, you said that that's a 1970s, 1980s view, but I think in near enough every single care home I've worked in, that's been the viewpoint. And I still think it happens now that you have to leave whatever your problem is at the door and go in. And it takes me right back. I remember I worked for one service and you weren't allowed to tell the people your real name. So you could tell them your first name, but you had to give them a fake surname, a fake date of birth, a fake, like what area you lived. Like basically your whole persona was fake. And trying to keep up with the lie that you were telling people was harder than actually just, being yourself. And you didn't actually really know who you were working with either, because we all just knew a fake version of each other. So then when you got outside of work, you just couldn't keep up with who was who.
Yeah. I'd really recommend that. It's funny in life how you come across people. And I walk my dog on the green here, just by the side of my house. And literally 2 months ago, I met a woman called Una McCluskey, Dr. Una McCluskey. And she's written a book recently called To Be Met as a Whole Person at Work. And I'd really recommend it because it's a book about that. Surely, I've been on the other side, obviously receiving healthcare, and surely we all want to be met as a whole person at work. Whether you're staying somewhere, whether you're lying like me in a bed in cardiac intensive care, whatever, you want the person, the other side of you, to be a whole person. Yeah. But that is still not about taking everything outwards. And I think that's the danger. People are scared of an emotional tsunami. Or they're scared that the workplace will drown in everyone's domesticity. And it's not about that. It's about actually saying the wholeness of who I am on the inside is what I'm going to actually be. But it doesn't mean that you then produce a list of all your stuff.
Do you think as a society, and just take it away directly from the social care sector for a second, do you think as a society we have a fear of attachment? Because, my other half is a holistic therapist, does a lot about childhood trauma and growing out from your trauma and how trauma in your past affects how you become as an adult, and everything's learned from a very young age. And in social care, we're always told, well, I was always told when I was younger, don't get attached to the people you support. You're not supposed to get attached. And I was always like, but if I don't get attached to them, how do I care for them? Because obviously I need to have that sort of human connection with them to be able to do it. And do you think sometimes it's so I'm from the LGBTQIA plus community, and I remember in my first sort of 6 years of social care, it was don't tell them you're gay, because they won't accept it, and you shouldn't bring it into work, and that's your personal life, and you should talk about that at home. So for like my first 6 years in social care, I was like, it was like, oh, do you have a girlfriend? And I was like, yeah, she's called Stephanie, because he's called Stephen in real life. You did that whole sort of playing along with it. And I'll always remember that I went to a Pride one year, and one of the people I support, their daughter was at Pride, and she came into the care home and said, I don't want this person looking after my dad. I don't want a gay looking after my dad. And I was told there and then, you really do need to make sure that it's not brought into the whole work aspect. And then as I got older, something shifted in me, and I started to become more honest at work. And the connections you build just by being that little bit more honest and that little bit more open, it brought a genuine sort of feel to things. But as a society, especially this last 18 months where we're all segregated and we can't meet up and, oh, don't stand too close to me at the till, do we have a problem with attachment? Is there something that actually it's not just social care people and managers that are struggling with it? And this is a question to everyone. It's just a question I'm thinking of right now. Do we have a problem with being open with people? And if so, why?
Yeah, I think there's lots of layers into that question. I think professionally, it was couched that there was a problem with attachment because from attachment came abuse, safeguarding, all sorts of blurred boundaries of relationships. And I think it came from a position of professional fear of, if we enable attachment, are we enabling a complete blurring of all the lines between us all? When in essence, no matter how much we are attached to people, those attachments are very different to our personal attachments, our domestic or relationship attachments. They may be like attachments, but they're not quite the same. And I think people were worried if we said, no, let's open up the door to attachment, that they would no longer know how and where to, in a sense, manage other people's emotions at work. But I would argue that it's detachment that's caused abuse, safeguarding, all sorts of scenarios of risk and violence and whatever in the health and social care sector. It's the detachment that's created the otherism, the separation of, well, you're vulnerable people and we're not. When the reality is we're all vulnerable. We've all got vulnerabilities going on in life. And I think that's what the pandemic has done. The pandemic has said and shown us we're all only a flicker away from our own vulnerability. And what I think has been interesting and concerning in some ways is the pandemic had the potential, the massive potential, to draw on that vulnerability and create a whole new way of being for all of us, at home, at work, in relationships, in the street, whatever. But what seems to have happened is that memories are short and people are already retreating backwards to past ways of being and not holding on to their vulnerability. And part of my role at the university and in promoting the whole concept of emotional intelligence in care is saying if there's one legacy from the pandemic, it's got to be a legacy of the power of vulnerability. And so, like again, on the chair last week at the university, I wrote, one of the words I wrote was about myself was hates goodbyes. Well, it's no secret why I hate goodbyes, because at 8 years old, there was a policeman at the door come to tell my mother she was a widow. And, with me and a baby. And so my life started to be formed on people die, people go while I'm a child. I'm going to have that sense of loss. So to this day, if it's saying goodbye to a colleague who's leaving work with me, saying goodbye to someone who I know I'm going to see in a month's time, I have a huge problem about goodbyes. And I choke up and I'm emotional and I feel anxious and I worry about it. But this is the real stuff of life, isn't it? This is about who we really are. Now, it's a sad world if people are going to say, and there's a book out just recently by Moira Welsh in Canada called Living Happily Ever Older. And the first sentence of the book is, David Sheard makes people cry. And she goes on from there to talk about that. I don't make people cry. I don't seek to deliberately do it. But what I do is model the emotion within me as a way to say, this is the real me. It's, you know, I'm not a professor at university from my brain or my head. It's because it's coming from the human being I've tried to be, faults and all. And yes, I'm known for causing a lot of tears and a lot of emotion in the sector. But that's because I see it clammed up. And what I'm trying to say to people is, attachment is everything we need in life. Vulnerability is your power. Let the tears come, and you'll be a damn sight better manager, social care worker, nurse. Do I cry all the time with people who are in a care home or in a hospital ward? No, but I have shed tears, and I've explained where that comes from. And it comes from the same place as, you know, when I was in cardiac intensive care at St Thomas's Hospital, you know, I'd had one heart attack. I was then in hospital, you know, looking over at Big Ben, you know, into the second heart attack. And I'll never forget the nurse who'd been with me through all that in cardiac A&E. And as I went into the second heart attack, the crash team came again. And holding my hand, she said to me and to that crash team, we are not going to let this lovely man go, as she shed a tear. And I have never forgotten her, and I've never forgotten that was true person-centered care in action. So I would say to people out there, that is really being person-centered, because I felt I could die in that moment without my partner, Peter, without my daughter, Chloe, having got there, and it was going to be okay, because I had someone who was being there for me in a genuine, authentic way. Yes, she was still being the cardiac intensive care nurse, charting like fury with the machines, but she, at that moment, knew how to be.
And I think that's some of the problem, isn't it? If we've got staff that can't be who they really want to be. And, you know, I've worked for companies where you can't dye your hair and you can't show your tattoos, but actually that's a large part of somebody's personality and actually can spark so many conversations about where that tattoo idea came from, what it represents. And there was always this fear, wasn't there, that, you know, elderly wouldn't want to see that. But actually, I know from home care days that put somebody in that was covered in an armful of tattoos actually sparked conversations when they wouldn't speak to somebody else. And from a learning disability point of view, it would then spark the whole, could I have a tattoo?
Yeah.
What else is out there? And just broaden their experience and their life. And so many times, yeah, you'd have a staff member that had a tattoo and somebody with a learning disability be like, I'd love one of them. You go to home with a tattoo and speak to family and they'd have one and they'd show it off and they were proud of it. And yeah, I just think when we try and restrict people from who they really are or what they want to be, then actually, I don't know. I've always said that you always deliver person-centered care, but then we take that away from the staff that we support ourselves. Which
Utterly, Mark. And tattoos are the perfect example, aren't they? You know, we talk about engaging with people and engaging through colour and what we wear and expressing ourselves in the aura about us. You know, I've seen the most amazing reactions to people covered in tattoos from other people because it's actually a story. This is a story about me. And here it is. It's here for you to see, touch, talk about why, etc. Can I just acknowledge, Adam, I was conscious you wiped away some tears, or it looked like you were. And I wouldn't want to be having a session on emotional intelligence in care and talking as I did and not acknowledging it and asking, are you able to say where that came from? And if you need a breath, it's okay. Okay, because
this is something that I don't really talk to people about, and I've not really spoken to Dawn and Mark about it. But
right. Well,
it took me right back to my dad when he was on his deathbed.
Right.
And ICU were fantastic with him, absolutely wonderful with him, and the people who were with him were fantastic. But it also reminded me of the failures that were going on at the same time. So they would keep calling him Jeffrey. And yeah, Jeffrey was his, his given name. That was his Sunday name, but he always went by his middle name, Richard. And he was going through such severe confusion at the time that I could see them getting agitated with him. Jeffrey, will you just roll over? Will you just do this, Jeffrey? And it was a case of saying to them, but he's called Richard. And that's his name. And I just wish everyone was like the nurses that you, and it just took me back to that. I'm sorry.
No. And I suppose that's an example, I think, of both sides of this whole thing about emotional intelligence in care. That for me, my view is through how I was talking or how I was feeling to you, we created some connection there, and some connection that deeply mattered. And as a result, people will feel differently having listened and felt that emotion in you. And I think that's all the stronger for it. But there'll be also a group of professionals who will think, oh, that's David back at his stuff again, and look, he did it again. And then he pushed Adam, and he pushed him to actually name the emotion. And this is dangerous stuff. This is the sort of stuff that's said. This is dangerous stuff. This is emotional manipulation. And so this whole area of emotional intelligence and care does create two camps of, do you see the strength in going there, or do you see it as something that's dangerous?
And for anyone who is watching this, I'll happily. I mean, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I always have done. It's who I am. I'm a terribly emotional person. I cry when someone wins MasterChef. I cry when someone leaves MasterChef. I'm absolutely terrible. I'm so in touch with my emotions. It's untrue, but I did learn from that experience, and I made sure that no matter what I did within the services I managed from there on, I made sure that whether it be the name that they want to be used, whether it was a pet name they want to be used, I made sure that everything was person-led. I know we talk about person-centered, I know we talk about person-focused, which is absolutely fine, but I wanted to make sure that the person in my service, the person that I was supporting, led their way. I didn't want to be there going, this is what this person needs. I wanted to be there going, this is what this person is telling me they need. This is what this person is telling me that they want. And I actually said to the ward at the time, I said, can you just please put it in his preferred name section in his notes? Oh, we don't have space for that in our NHS notes. We don't have space for preferred names. Well, when I came into this hospital, it proudly declares that you're a John's Campaign hospital. So how can you be pledging to John's Campaign and the person's sensitive needs of people and not have a space in your records for someone's name that they want to go by? We're heading into a society now where it's not just names, it's pronouns. We need to be talking about what matters to people as an individual. And even if we think it's daft, let's go to Friends and someone wants to be called Princess Consuela Banana Hammock. If someone wants to be called that, we call them that if it means something to them. So you've not pressured me into anything tonight. I just struggle. As much as I'm open and I will listen to everyone's emotions and I'll take them in like a sponge and, I'm great like that, I always struggle to get off my chest sometimes how I personally feel. And I think it's a fear of owning up and realizing and remembering and going back to that trauma. But actually that trauma and that hurt and that pain can actually empower you to do something incredible. So no, not at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's who you are. It's a vital part of who you are. Yeah. But I think, when we talk about running, for instance, training sessions on this, it takes a courageous manager. It takes a courageous manager to say, actually, I'm not going to train down NVQs and I'm, as the only route. I'm not going to just look at competencies. I am going to look at the whole levels of emotional intelligence in the team. I am going to look at the emotional connections between people. And I'm going to accept that in doing that, there will be risks, that some people will then, as a result, need a lot more emotional support, because it may be they don't have nowhere else in their life to be whole and real. They might not go home to a partner who wants them to be real, who wants them to be genuine and speak the truth. They might not go home to families. And it might be work that's actually the only place that's saying, we want all of you. We want all of you. And I think that's, again, managers' fear, that then they think but what am I going to be taking on? And am I going to need mounds of staff counselling services? My experience is no, that a truly person-centred team actually become empowered enough then to start to really support each other. And they know the people who are going through the tough moment, the tough time, or going home to bad stuff, bad relationship. And they start to really practice being person-centred with each other. It isn't about mounds of costs and mounds of backup counselling services. It's about really creating a team, in my Yorkshire phrase, who get it, who really get it.
I've had a question text to me. She didn't want to pop it up on the on our comment section, but she's asked what your interpretation of person-centred care in emotional intelligence is.
Right. Okay. I think the whole term person-centred care is quite problematic, isn't it? Because it's still being, for want of a better word, touted as, the trend, the in thing, the now. And yet, as I say, it's been around 30 years. So we've got a problem, haven't we, that what's happened in those 30 years is it's become another institutionalized term with so many different meanings to different people. And it's become like a catchphrase to mean personal care or individualized care, or meeting needs. It's all over the place. But I don't think it originated all over the place, and I don't think the original advocates and writers and academics in it expected it to go down the routes it's gone down. Every care service says they're person-centred, regardless of what any audit on person-centred care would reveal. They all say in their brochures, their philosophies, logos, whatever, health and social care. So the person who's asked the question is right to say, so what now is it? And where are the links between that and emotional intelligence? And I would say emotional intelligence takes us right back to the roots, to Tom Kitwood's roots, about what person-centred care really was, which is that it's a belief system about life. It's a belief system about what it is to be human. It's an aspiration, because it's not easy. Am I person-centred with Peter, my partner? He's listening in by the side of me, and he'd be chipping in and saying, no chance. Because it's not easy to be person-centred to my daughter, to Pete. And there are times it's staring in your face when you know you failed. And you thought, no, I haven't heard the other person's perspective. I haven't been in their shoes. I have been some other place where I had my own agenda and I was trying to put it over or whatever. So I really believe it's be it, I'm not religious, but be it like Buddhism or whatever, it is a belief system truly about that we're all feeling beings, that whether we're going to the supermarket, whether we're walking the dog, whether we're relating to someone in the street who's a neighbour, whether we're ringing up our best friend, whether someone's in crisis and ringing us at 3 a.m, whether we're sat having supervision with a colleague, that actually it's about the way we want to be. And that's why it's so hard. And that's why the sector, instead of going down that road with it, institutionalized it into a set of tasks, competencies, instead of saying, no, this is about a life belief system. And therefore, are we going to really train and get people to learn a belief system about life that goes across cultures, goes across gender, when actually people might have not had that opportunity to examine that for themselves in their own life? Do we actually find out in a care worker or a nurse, have you had the chance to look at what it means to be? In my inaugural lecture, I talked about the simple feeling of being. But the simple feeling of being is very difficult to achieve, to understand the steps to get there, to understand what you have to discard along the way, to find allies. Actually, truly being person-centered can be quite a lonely place to be, because it means with emotional intelligence, you realize the people around you who are not getting you, who don't actually see that life's about navigating emotions minute by minute, and they start to label you, put you in strange places at a distance from them. The very thing that we've done to people needing, receiving, requiring support and care in our health and social care services happens to us in our own lives. Do I have less friends from striving for this? You bet. You bet. Do I have complex relationships with family? Those who get me, those who don't. Have I had to decide, even right down to what sort of partner do I want to be in life, and what is that going to mean? Because it'll mean speaking the truth to a partner at times when many people wouldn't. Actually saying what isn't working when many people wouldn't. So I think truly being person-centered and emotional intelligence are the same thing. They're about being who you are, not doing who you are.
I think honestly, a lot of what you say is just so incredibly interesting, and I apply it. When you're talking now, you're very much a kindred spirit to my other half, because this is very much his approach to things as well. But the one thing that I think about when we talk about emotional intelligence, and like we were saying, the needs of other people, is as a society, and again, this is really removed just from the social care sector, because I want to apply it to society as a whole. We've become very judgmental, and we're so quick to judge and assume and mock people in some regards. And I know I was at a shop the other day, and a chap came in, and he was obviously inebriated and only had 70p to his name and wanted to buy a pot noodle. And there was someone in the queue going, "Oh God, that's that drunk again, trying to get something. He's got no money." And all it took was for me to go, "Fill your basket, get what you need, and I'll pay for it. It's not a problem. I'll sort you out." And you sit there and you listen to people, and they're just so quick to dismiss people, not just their emotions, just dismiss people as an entity, as a whole.
Yeah. I can only speak personally and say how I feel that. I've come out of a 2-year severe depression, and I've heard people in the last few weeks say, "Oh, he's been made a professor. But I thought he was supposed to be severely depressed." I've read on Twitter that he'd written about it and explained the dark place he's gone to, as if somehow that your mental health at a certain point in life made you then ineligible for something else. It's very weird the way people attach or unattach their judgmental expectations about what is right or wrong in life, or about an individual. And so I think that's the big societal challenge about emotional intelligence in care. I think it's why it comes and goes in fads, because it's actually an enormous ask. And you're right, it's not really about health or social care at all. It's about the sort of society we want to all be. And so I've been doing work in Canada in the last few weeks, and there I've been talking about that emotional intelligence in care is a political fight. It's not soft and slushy, and all about let's all feel this together. It's about a political fight. It's about enlisting the media behind it. It's about finding the real demonstration people, homes, managers, wards, and really elevating those and showing how it works. It requires really charismatic thought leaders to be positioned in the health and social care sector on this. It requires gluing lots of champions together, because it can't be done. It requires a movement. And it's also about exposing powerful vested interests who are against this, because there are powerful vested interests in lots of the health and social care sector who will fight this. So it's huge.
When you say that they'll fight it, what do you mean? They don't want to be emotionally intelligent, or they don't want to change?
I think there will be people who have listened to this or have listened to the inaugural lecture, and it will be alien. It will be, that's not how I live. That's not how I make decisions. That's not the world I'm in. I don't get it. I don't understand this overemphasis, would be their word, on the joining up of heart and mind. And, you know, for me, emotional intelligence is the sixth sense. It's like the mind's eye. But we can't expect that everybody even understands the basics of this. There, you know, many people we can't think that everyone coming into health and social care comes in because of huge heart. Millions do, but some come in because of it's good business. Some come in because of profit. Some come in because they're a shareholder who is coming from a very different headspace. People come in it because they're orientated towards building management, facilities. The language of the care sector is not emotion intelligent language. It's us and them language. So we've got a dilemma that if emotion intelligence is going to be really inclusive, it has to hear from the people who don't get what this is all about, don't get this chat show, don't get the inaugural lecture, because they're the people, you know, the converts, you know, the people like yourselves who, you know, booked me to talk to you on this, they're not the people in the end that we've got to work with and convince. It's the people who, post-pandemic, think they're invulnerable again, think that they'll never go there again in a moment in their life, who would not put words on a chair about their emotional vulnerability. And we have to find out why they wouldn't. What is that deep fear in them? And it probably comes from bad experiences in life, from not being supported, from people not being there for them, and them feeling that the cost and the risks are too high. And that's a big societal shift.
So, I mean, layered questions are coming your way again, and I don't want to make your job hard tonight, but first point I want to make on that is you make a huge statement there, and it's something that I believe is happening right now. And the last 10 years has seen social care go from, say, point Z to point D. You know, we were getting there. We were making our way to an end goal, which was transforming the sector. And then the pandemic came, and we've sort of been thrown back like a slingshot, sort of 15 years. And we've gone back to this idea of closed culture, and the pandemic has really damaged the social care sector. And I think a lot of, I say a lot, when I say a lot, I mean more than one, because more than one's a lot to me in social care. A lot of people have gone, oh, phew. We don't have to bother with all of this again. We can close the doors again, and we can block people out again. And it's made life easy again because we're not having to upkeep this persona. So I do think a lot of that's gone on. And I know we've discussed that a lot tonight, but I really do want to just celebrate your new role. And what does it entail? You know, Professor of Emotional Intelligence, you know, who are you teaching? Who's it aimed at? What do you want to achieve? I think it's a fantastic achievement. Should be lauded. I think it's brilliant. But what's your aims now? What do you want to achieve moving forward? Because everyone watching this tonight will know you as the superstar of dementia in social care right now. And I know they're all eager to go, what's he doing next? What do you want to achieve?
Right, okay. I think the answer to that is small and big. And sometimes the small things are the big things and vice versa. So within the university, I'm involved in nurse education, OT, physio education. I've just had a conversation this morning about we're going to be having a new social work course at York St John University. Tomorrow I meet the Professor of Counselling at the university. So my role is to look across all the disciplines. We've got paramedical science as well. So I'm looking across the whole of the disciplines about how we weave in emotional intelligence in care as the foundation, not as an add-on, as the foundation. So if you take nursing at York St John, only this September did the new undergraduate program start. There hasn't been nursing programs before, and that's led by Dr. Ros Brownlow, and it's all about integrative nursing. So already they've had lectures from her team, myself, about everything we talked about tonight. They're already going through, literally in their first month as an undergraduate, that this is what nursing is. The robotics can come, the high-tech clinical skills can come, but this is woven right through, and that's what's making this particular nursing degree very, very different, and the same for the other disciplines. So on the micro level, after 40 years, if I can convince an 18-year-old or a mature student of 44 to be who they are from the inside and to actually recognize their emotional being and their vulnerability, and that's the core of being a nurse, then at 63, with that nurse student in a room in York at the university, that's, whether it's a small achievement or a big achievement, I think is debatable. It could be both. So I'd say to everybody out there, start small. Start with each staff member, each team member, each person, and actually believe that every human being wants that emotional human permission and release, and that they'll flourish more with it. On a bigger scale, we're looking obviously at research projects in this to prove, to actually, now I've got the whole university behind me, to really get a university really championing this nationally. And we're seeking partnerships, projects with people out there who really, really want to start to explore this development within themselves as a manager or a group of managers or a team in health or social care, because we believe that there is an evidence base to establish on this as well. And the evidence base sometimes is for the people who don't get it. They may not get what I've spoken about for the last hour, but they get reading a paper where it's actually been peer reviewed and there's been control groups. And although I've been viewed as the maverick and the disruptor on the edge of the health and social care sector, I suppose I'm seeing this post as the opportunity that I'm now in the core, with a university behind me to actually shift my work from the disrupting on the edge to disrupting in the centre.
Brilliant. So last question, and then we'll let you go and get on with your evening, because you must be exhausted after all that. If there were any tips that you could give care home managers in respect of emotional intelligence while they are awaiting to attend one of your lectures or one of your courses, what would you give them now? We're about to go into what could be another lockdown. There's restrictions on care homes. They've got care staff scared about this new variant. What tips would you give managers right now in respect of where they go from here to be emotionally intelligent?
Yeah, I would go onto my website. I have a university linked website because it's too hard to navigate through the whole of the university website to get, to one person in it. So I created a personal website that's attached to the university. It's emotional-intelligence.care. If you go to that website and press the About Me button, and what will come up is a sheet, and it's the sheet I used at my inaugural lecture. And you'll read all the words about me under all the headings. And what I would say is start there. Create your own sheet. Use that as a template. Fill in under each of the headings 6 words about yourself, and complete that one sheet, and then say to the staff that you want a session going in with them into this next stage of the pandemic, and you want to be sure that they really know who you are as a whole person at work, and you want to be sure that they know you come as a whole person to be met at work, as McCluskey would say. And do that exercise and see what the impact is. See the people who are puzzled by it. See the people who cry listening to you read out the words. See the people who are a bit unsure but interested to learn more, and then work out what was the level of emotional intelligence in the room as you did that sheet and talk to your team about it as who you really are. And then work out, is this something you could extend into the team? Gently, slowly, perhaps not all in one big hit, but start to work with them on that permission statement. We want you to be a whole person. We want you to be met whole here at work. And to help them understand that's not a major dump outwards to other vulnerable people, but it is a way to be whole and supportive to one another. So I would start there. I did a session in a home in Cornwall a few weeks ago, and we spent the whole day doing that together. And there's a quote on my website from a manager who said, all I needed to show them was that I was vulnerable and real.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Struggling to unmute myself then. I'm just mesmerised tonight. I'm captivated. I think it's been wonderful. It's been great to finally meet you. I told you off air, you know, that Dawn and I and probably Mark have been fangirling about tonight because, you know, you've been such an inspiration to us throughout our social care journeys. And I just think it's absolutely commendable what you've achieved so far and what you continue to achieve, you know, against the odds and through your own issues as well. And I think the social care sector as a whole is a better place because of you, David, and I do mean that. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Great pleasure to meet kindred spirits, and I'm sure there's many out there who've been listening as well. And let's keep talking. Let's just keep talking.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Conversations flowing. So we started at the beginning of the we started at the beginning of the show by saying we are doing an extra episode this week. It is going to be on Thursday at 7:30. Christmas 2021. The inn is still closed. We're going to be joined by Jenny and Diane from Rights for Residents, discussing what providers could be doing moving forward to make sure that Christmas is inclusive and is making sure people are connected. Next week, Mark, I think we've got York on. What we're discussing next week, Mark?
Yes, we've got York from Five on a Bike, and we're discussing the art of video marketing. So he specialises, or him and his company specialise in care home videos or provider videos. So yeah, really looking forward to that, because I think that's definitely the way into 22 of care homes and care providers showcasing what their services are about.
And we always say, you know, a picture speaks 1,000 words. But like I said before, just watching a video from David Shear from years ago and from other people who inspire us in social care, videos can really communicate the outcome at the end, can't they? You know, we can read about it, we can look at photos, but if we can actually visualize it and see it going on and happening, it really does change the way things work. So thank you all so much. We will see you on Thursday this week for our special episode. If you can't join us this Thursday, be sure to check us out on Tuesday next week, where we are discussing the art of video in marketing. So good night, everyone.
See you later.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us tonight on The Caring View. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And whilst you're here, check out some of the other videos that we've got up online. If you've got something that you think may be interesting for us to discuss, or if you want to guest spot with us, then drop us an email to thecaringview@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, find us on Facebook. All the information is down there in the description box. But until then, have a good evening, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.